everybody.
I'm just playing my guitar. Let me put my guitar down.
I know it's catchy, right?
Yes.
It was the catchiest free music I could find. Everybody, this is Kim from Read It Again Bookstore, and today I am joined by Chris Grabenstein. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Kim. Good to be here with you guys in Georgia. As a boy who grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I can see the red clay. Red clay everywhere.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Okay, so my first question is, how many books have you written? Like kids' books?
Well, it's different. I probably have written 70 some, but the number that have been published, because I got rejected a lot when I first started, about 66 or 67 books. There's one copy of every book back there on that shelf behind me, there we are, backwards. There we go.
Yeah, it's backwards. So, well, I mean, you're not going to fix your hair, but if you have to fix your hair, you have to close your eyes and fix it that way. Because otherwise you're like moving it to the other side of your face.
Interesting.
Okay, so tell me about the smartest kid in the universe.
Well, the smartest kid, actually, I can take you through a little presentation I've got here and show you where I got this idea, because that's kind of fun. When I go to schools or talk to kids on Zooms, that's the number one question. Where do you get your ideas? So this is a little bit I put together about where I got this idea. Here we go. We're going to share this screen. And is it coming up? There it is. Those are most of the books I've written. Those are all the books I've written for kids. When I first started writing, I wrote mysteries for adults and thrillers for adults. But now I'm all kids all the time because I'm 12 years old in my brain. So the newest book that just came out is called The Smartest Kid in the Universe. And this idea started with me thinking about my least favorite Halloween candy, which is something called Smarties, which are those pastel colored little discs that come wrapped up in cellophane. And once I went to London, and they have a type of M&Ms called Smarties over there. I think you can get them in Canada too. And they don't taste as good as M&Ms. But I started thinking to myself, what if, because those are the two words that get every single one of those books started, what if I could eat a Smartie and become a smarty? What if there was such a thing as ingestible knowledge? So now once I have a what if idea like that, I start doing a little research, digging around and seeing, well, is there any facts that might back this up? And I stumbled across a TED Talk, which are these short little lectures that these very smart people do. And this guy who was given this particular TED Talk was an MIT professor, an eminent futurologist who has predicted everything correctly for the past 30 years. He said someday we'd be having bookstore events virtually on computers. And people said, that will never happen. He said someday we will be able to read books and newspapers and magazines on our telephone. And people say, that'll never happen, buddy. He said someday there will be a device in your automobile that links to satellites up in space that will beam information down to your car to help you navigate your vehicle. And people said, that's not going to happen. Well, of course, all of that came true. So at the end of this TED Talk, they asked him, what do you think will be the next big thing? And this is what he said.
My prediction is that we are going to ingest information. You're going to swallow a pill with no English. You're going to swallow a pill with no Shakespeare. And the way to do it is through the bloodstream. So once it's in your bloodstream, it basically goes through it, gets into the brain. When it knows that it's in the brain, the different pieces, it deposits it in the right places. So it's ingested.
So ingestible knowledge could be a thing. So what if I said to myself again, there was a genius young scientist, a mad professor, if you will, who found a way to make ingestible knowledge, and then he put that formula into capsules that were actually jelly beans. And then he took a jar of those jelly beans to a hotel where a major scientific conference was taking place. And then that hotel had an events coordinator who had a son. And then that son was the laziest seventh grader who ever lived. And then, since his mother was working late at the hotel, no one was home to cook him dinner. And then he took his little sister to the hotel to mooch a free meal in the restaurant. And then they said, well, we'll give you a free free meal, but you'll have to wait till all these scientists are served. And then he went into a waiting room, and then he saw a jar filled with jelly beans. And then, since nobody had written their name on that jar, he ate them all. And 15 minutes later, he was speaking Swahili because he had become the smartest kid in the universe. And for all you writers and wannabe writers out there, that is actually the silly technique that I use every time for all these books you see here. Every single one of them started with a what if that was like a rock that I dropped into a pond and watched all the, and then you know what, and then you know what, and then you know what, all the ripples that come from that one pebble drop. The secret is to leave out all those, and then you know what. So that's where the story got started. So I'll quit screen sharing there. And that's how the smartest kid in the universe got going. And there was a great review in the New York Times, a lot of great reviews. So it's been pretty exciting. People seem to really love Jake McQuaid.
I really enjoyed it. I read a lot of books. So it's I like most of the books I read, but this one I actually really enjoyed.
Okay, well then you're happy to know there will be a sequel. I'll show you the cover.
Nice.
Just finish the cover. This is Jake McQuaid gets invited because he's the smartest kid in the universe. There's a very jealous sort of Silicon Valley type guy who used to be known as the smartest kid in the universe. Now he's 28, 30. He's very jealous of Jake McQuaid and lures him up to a camp for geniuses where Jake's going to have to go up against someone who might be even smarter than him. He might even have to battle with artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys make the T-shirts from that you talk about in the book?
No, we have not made those T-shirts yet. I need to open a cafe press. Yes. I need to open it.
Well, or bonfire. You could do bonfire because it was and it was like, what was it? It was genius spelled out with periodic table letters.
I think those actually exist. I think if you kind of Google around for those, you will find those.
But then it was his school picture. So you put the picture from the first cover of him with genius over it, and that would just be a great thing. That'd be awesome.
What's that thing better than cafe press? What is that?
Bonfire.
Bonfire. Making a note.
Bonfire. That's what we use for our T-shirts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I like that. So what are you working on right now?
Right now, I am working on the sequel, believe it or not, to a book that hasn't even come out. There's a book coming out this May called Dog Squad, which it was kind of inspired. The what if there came from our late dog, was a dog named Fred, who Fred was a stray running around in the Bronx section of New York. He got caught by animal rescue, put in a shelter, and was about to get the big needle. A guy named Bill Berloni, who has trained every dog on Broadway since the original production of Annie. Not every dog, but all the good dogs. He did like Legally Blonde and Annie.
They're all good dogs.
Yes. So he was doing a Broadway production of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And I think they needed 7 dogs. They had 5. They needed 2 more. So as a publicity stunt, they said, all you animal shelters, bring your dogs into audition. Fred went and he won the part. So our late dog was a Broadway star before we adopted him. My wife, who has been off Broadway and done Broadway touring shows and stuff, used to walk the dog and say, my dog has better credits than me. He's been on Broadway. So for this story, I said, what if there was a dog like Fred who started on Broadway, but then the trainer that he was working with, he's in a real turkey of a show called Washington. It's kind of like Hamilton, but no good. And the show closes after one night, but he thinks, oh gosh, I'm going back to the shelter. But the trainer says, come on, you come with me. We'll find other work for you. Turns out he looks exactly like the star of TV's #1 streaming sensation, Dog Squad. And when that star Duke, who's kind of a diva, if you ask me, breaks his leg, Fred goes on and saves the day and adventure ensues. So that book doesn't even come out till May, but we're already working on the sequel to that. And James Patterson and I are working on Treasure Hunters #8. Can you believe it? That'll be the 8th book in that series. And then when that's done, he wants me to get started on an idea he has for a 3rd Jackie Ha-Ha book. So we'll be doing that.
It sounds like you have like your next 4 years planned out.
At least this year. I have a little schedule over there that tells me what am I supposed to be working on and when is it due.
My goodness. How long does it take you to write a book?
If I'm really diligent and write my 2,000 new words every day, which is my goal, write 2,000 new words, and I start the day going over the 2,000 words I wrote the day before. And that can take anywhere from like 2 hours if it's rat-a-tat like dialogue, or the twins in Treasure Hunters are having one of their funny tirades. I can bang off 2,000 words in like 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
But if I'm working on something like Max Einstein, or the Dog Squad sequel that I'm working on is taking place the first couple chapters in Paris. So I've got to do all sorts of research, like how do you get up to the top of the Eiffel Tower? And where could dogs go out to eat and have steak tartare? And so you do all this kind of fun research. And so that'll take like 6 to 8 hours to do my 2,000 words. So if I do that consistently, I'll get the first draft done in 4 months, because I'm usually doing 2 weeks of a James Patterson book and 2 weeks of my own book.
Wow. So what kind of research did you do for The Smartest Kid in the Universe? Because you sprout out a ton of facts.
I did a lot of research. Once I found this guy, then I started getting into the weeds of how it might be possible. And the thing I learned early on, my very first book, one of the ones that got rejected, I was going to do this kind of spooky Stephen King thing in the mountains of the Andes where these shamans were. And so I did all this research about the mountains. And my wife, who's my first reader and also the co-author of Shine, a book we did together, she read this and said, I'm glad you did all this research about this mountain range, but the story doesn't start until the 5th page. And so I learned early on that you do all this research, then the game is just putting enough into the book that people go, okay, that makes sense. There's something about proteins and brain chemistry. There's just like 2 paragraphs, just enough for kids 8 to 12 to go, okay, that sounds like it's legit. That could happen. Now let's get back to the story. What you don't want to do, I used to get bogged down in Tom Clancy books where he did so much research on submarines that you felt like you got your ship's captain license. By
Michael Crichton's the same way.
Yeah. And so it's like, and we have a little saying, don't let your research show. Just give the readers enough that they can willingly suspend their disbelief and go, this sounds like it's plausible. This could actually happen.
So Kristen says, you're currently reading your books in our class Read Aloud. We love it. My kids are begging for jelly beans.
Oh, good. Yes, that was a promotion I did, too. I did these little 2-ounce bags of jelly beans. People who pre-ordered the book, I sent them out a bag of jelly beans and learned how expensive it is to mail 2 ounces to Canada. It kind of bankrupted us there. But yes, I did a lot of good jelly bean research. I love the Jelly Bellies. And this holiday season, I've discovered that if you eat a candy cane Jelly Belly and a hot cocoa jelly bean at the same time, you will be eating peppermint bark. And they also made Krispy Kreme flavored Jelly Bellies, which I said,
the donuts?
Yeah, I said, come on. I grew up in Chattanooga. We ate Krispy Kremes more
hot now.
And they tasted like Krispy Kreme donuts and different flavors, jelly, glaze, blueberry. It was amazing.
Huh. Gosh, I haven't had a donut in years. Maybe I should try that because I can eat jelly beans. I just can't eat donuts.
Yeah. Jelly beans are good.
Jelly beans. So you really have to like sit down and do like 2,000 words a day. Like that is your goal. Like that's amazing that you have the willpower to sit there and do that.
Well, that's all I do. And it's fun. It's fun. As James Patterson often says, if you can find something you love to do and someone will pay you to do it, you'll never have to work a day in your life.
That's
and
true.
So I kind of think of this as playing in a big sandbox. And it takes like 20 minutes before the characters start coming alive in your head. And I start hearing Jake and Grace and Kojo. My favorite character has Hazim Faruqi. And it's very interesting. Some people have discovered that Hazim Faruqi's website that he mentions in the book, it might actually be real.
Oh.
It's like a little Easter egg. It might. I said some kid might go exploring to see if that's a real website. I think it's beansforbrains.net. I think.
I'll look it up.
I think that's what it's.
Beansforbrains.net.
I think that's what it is.
Scholarship.
No.
No. Oh, well.
Oh, well. I think that's what it was. It's in the book. Read the book.
Our fourth grade class just finished your book. We loved it and cannot wait for the sequel. Are you visiting classes in the May virtually?
Yes, I'm visiting their class in May. It sounds like, yay. That's good. Looking forward to it. My assistant, Lindsay, who is a librarian in Tennessee, keeps me organized and tells me who I'm talking to every day.
I want an assistant.
I ended up needing one because I
bet.
I was doing my own travel and stuff, and I got to a hotel once at like 11 o'clock in Chicago. You're not here till tomorrow. Oh, book this hotel room. Oh, I did. Fortunately, they had an extra room that night.
Oh, good. So who are some of the stuffed animals you have on your shelf behind you?
Let's see. I've got, these are some puppets. My wife and I, sometimes we do puppets at our church. And that's those are puppets we do for that. Over here, that is Spud. That is a Idaho potato that I was on a book trip to, I think it was a young writers conference in Idaho, and the librarian who was hosting me had that on her shelf and saw me going, me what? And she said, would you like to take Spud home with you? And I did. And I got a baby Yoda up there. And there's a mole, because one of my adult books was called Whack-A-Mole, and my wife would buy me a little present every time a book came out.
Aww.
And that's her Audie Award nomination, that little medal that just showed up yesterday, because the book I wrote called Stuck, which is called an Audible original, which is like a radio play with a full cast. JJ was in it, and I was in it too. But
she got the award.
She got so far they haven't sent me a medallion, or I'd be wearing it right now.
Oh my goodness. If anybody else has any questions, this is the time to ask. You're watching. By the way, Chris, you mentioned before we went on that you have a favorite independent bookstore you like to support.
Well, yeah, there's one. I love yours. I mean, if I was still living in Chattanooga, I'm sure I'd be down there. And the one in Decatur, I like too. I like a lot of bookstores.
The Shop of Stories, yeah.
Shop of Stories. But here in New York City, there's a bookstore called Books of Wonder, which they've been an all children's bookstore for, is it 30 years now? And they have a place down in Chelsea, but they just opened one up near where I live a couple of years ago. So I'm actually going to go there this afternoon, because if anybody in the world wants a personalized, like for a birthday or something, they just call Books of Wonder, and Books of Wonder lets me know when I go over there and sign it and personalize it, and then they take care of all the shipping.
Oh, I love that. Here, I'm finding their website for you guys.
Yes, Books of Wonder on the Upper West Side, it's called. And they like you have all sorts of events, and they also have a great collection of collectible art. And the owner is a big Wizard of Oz fan, so you can get all sorts of cool stuff.
That's very cool. Well, we have copies of The Smartest Kid in the Universe in stock, and I think I have a bunch of other Chris's books in stock, because we always keep him in stock. So if anybody's interested, we do have it. You can buy it off our website. I put a link in the comments. We would love for you to support us, but if you want to support your local bookstore and it's not us, that's okay. We got a question.
If you do buy books through here, I'm sure Kim will send me a request for book plates.
I will. I totally will.
I can do personalized book plates and send them, because I actually have. I'll show you a sample. Oh, wait. Yes, you ordered from Kim today. Wait a minute. I'm going over here to the supplies closet. Yes, order from Kim today. And she'll make sure you get a personalized Smartest Kid in the Universe book plate to put in the front of your book. And, of course, a Smartest Kid in the Universe bookmark. So
that's awesome, because not a lot of times when we get author book plates, it doesn't say who the author is, but you have a picture of the cover on there, so we can be like, oh, this is Chris's book.
These are limited edition. So
we have a question here. Which was your favorite book to write?
My favorite book to write probably was this one. I'll show you right here. Shine. Because I wrote that. I wrote my wife, and if you see over my this finger, Shine's going to have a new cover when it comes out in paperback. I'm going to go get that one.
Studio here. Yeah, well, I love the show and tell.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Let go of it, Baby Yoda. Let go of it. Baby Yoda was holding on to it right there. So, yeah, it's going to have a new cover in the fall. There we go.
Love the pug.
Yeah, that's Mr. Pugsley. And I think that'll just let kids know, oh, there's a kid in it. And this book right here was a lot of fun writing with my wife. I think all my books have humor and heart and funny stuff and mysteries to solve, but I think that book might have even more heart in it because my wife has the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met. Read the book. Piper Millie, who is the sweetest, kindest kid in the world, is based on JJ.
Oh, my kids want to know, what inspired you to be an author?
Oh, I wanted to become a writer because I was no good at anything else. When I was in 5th grade there on Signal Mountain, Tennessee, and Wilkes T. Thrasher Elementary, we used to play kickball at recess. And we go out there and they roll the ball right at your foot. And I go, I was the only kid who could strike out swinging 3 times in a row. And fortunately, though, I started doing these little comic books where I made up the story and I drew little cartoons and I passed them out to my friends and they started laughing. Then in 6th grade, I wrote skits for my friends to act in and the whole audience started laughing at the talent shows. Then in 7th grade, I had a teacher, June Garrett, who was my 7th grade English teacher. She liked the funny essays I wrote so much. She wrote in the margins of my paper, "You will make your living as a writer."
Sounds like she's a futurist.
Yeah, when a teacher tells you something, you know it has to be true because teachers everywhere in Georgia too take a solemn vow to never ever lie to children. So from that point, I was off in 8th grade. I wrote an essay. What do you want to be when you grow up? I said I want to be a writer or a comedian. In high school, I started acting in all sorts of plays, writing for the school newspaper, had some more great English teachers. Went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where I studied journalism, advertising, and broadcasting while acting in about 50 plays in college. Then after college, I moved to New York City with 7 suitcases, $1,000, and a typewriter.
Wow.
And I started doing improvisational comedy with a troupe in Greenwich Village. We had a guy named Bruce Willis in our troupe. He shaved his head, moved to California.
Who is that? I don't know that guy.
And the late Robin Williams, whenever he was in New York City, he would jump up on stage with us and perform with us. And while I was doing that by day, I was typing because I learned how to type in journalism school, but I was also writing. I wrote a movie with a college buddy of mine for CBS called The Christmas Gift, starring John Denver. I got to write for the Muppets. Then in 1984, when I realized I was making $10 a weekend doing improvisational comedy, and I didn't want to keep typing for a living for the rest of my life, I found a job writing radio and television commercials at one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. And my first boss was a guy named James Patterson. So I wrote radio and television commercials for almost 20 years. It's one of the reasons why I love doing the Audible originals, because I love doing radio commercials almost more than doing all the TV ones. And then when I was about 2001, I said, I don't want to write commercials for the rest of my life. That guy James Patterson had a pretty good second career when he quit advertising. So I quit and I set off to try to become an author. So I guess I wanted to be a writer since I was 10 years old, but my inspiration for becoming an author was James Patterson.
Very cool. Okay, so we have a couple
more.
more.
A whole life story there. I see that.
Yeah. How long have you been published?
My first book, which was a murder mystery for adults, was published in the year 2005. Wait a minute, didn't you say you started writing books in 2001? Yes, I was rejected and rejected and rejected for 4 whole years. I wrote 4 books over 4 years and nobody was interested in them. Finally, I wrote a mystery and it was the first book ever published. And where is it? Down here? Yes, there's a pink book down there. It's called Tilt-A-Whirl, and it won an award that year for the best first mystery. So that was 2005. Now it's 2021. So in 16 years, I've had so far 67 different books published. By the end of this year, we think it'll be close to 72.
Wow.
I'm losing count.
Wow. Okay, so when you're not writing, what do you like to read?
I like to read nonfiction because I spend so much time writing fiction. And so I love Steve Sheinkin. He writes some really good, if you guys are in middle school, probably 7th, 8th grade, he writes some really great historical novels. One's called The Bomb, and his newest one was Jim Thorpe. And he wrote one about women pilots, which was amazing to find out all these women who were like aces. We all think about Amelia Earhart, but she was just one of like dozens of these kind of daredevil women who were flying airplanes. So I love his stuff. I love anything by Jenny Holm because it's fast paced. I love books by Dan Gutman. Just for for laughs. He's a very funny guy. And who else do I love them all. I also love Stephen King, but don't you guys read them because you'll be up all night having nightmares. And one of the things I love doing is listening to books on audio. During the lockdown and the pandemic, I've been going for a little 3-mile walk every morning to try to stay in some kind of shape. And when I'm doing that, I listen to audiobooks.
We're big fans of audiobooks here at Read It Again. We love Libro FM because it's kind of like Amazon, but instead of giving your money to a giant conglomerate, a portion of each sale goes to your favorite independent bookstore.
I know. That's why I've got a membership too.
I put a link down in the bottom. We got another question here. What was it like writing iFunny? I love that book.
Oh, to be honest, it was a little nervous at first because James Patterson tried me out on one of his Daniel X books. That was like my audition to see if I could write with him. And that was the 5th book in that series. So I had to sort of imitate the style they'd already started. And that was really hard because I had to learn everything that happened in the first 4 books before I could start writing the 5th book. But he was pleased with the job I did. And then he had this idea for iFunny. And he remembered that I used to do improvisational comedy and I attempted to do stand-up comedy, but I wasn't very good at stand-up comedy. It's a whole different world. When you do improv, you're more like an actor creating funny scenes or skits. When you're doing stand-up, you're all by yourself in the spotlight. So I was terrible. But I had experience with the comedy clubs and stuff, and Jim knew that. So he asked me to work on that. And it took us a little while to find the voice of it. But once we did, boom, and it was a lot of fun for me because, as I said, I always wanted to be a stand-up comic. And that's one of the great things about being an author or a writer of any kind, actually. You get to become every character you create. So not only did I get to be a stand-up comic, I got to be a very good one because Jamie Grimm is very good and he wins all sorts of contests. And I think we ended up doing 6 books in that series. And Mr. Patterson has told me I think Ron Howard's people have optioned that to maybe someday turn that into a TV show or a movie or something.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
We got another one. How many drafts of your books do you go through before you love it?
Before I love it, I'll go through like 5. Then I'll give it to my wife, and she has to love it. And then I'll show you something here. I got a little prop over here. Then you send it off to your editor. And I've had a great editor for about 17 books. Let me get this in the right order here. And her name is Shana Corey, and she reads the books I write. And then, where's the first page? I'm missing the first page. Oh, I must have got this out of order the last time I presented it. Anyhow, let me see. There's another page back here. Yes, there it is. It's 9. So what you do, it's like turning in a paper to your teacher. You turn in your manuscript. My wife's read it. My agents looked at it. We're all like, yeah, baby, we got this. We've been working on this for months and months. It's perfect. Then you get what's known as an editorial letter. And this is one of the ones we got for Shine, which says, "Dear Chris and JJ, this book's going to be great. You guys are geniuses. But before you work on the next draft, here are a few things you might want to look at and go back and change. And when you're done changing those things, you might want to look at these things. Oh, and here's a few more. Lest I forget, here's a few more comments. But don't worry, it's going to be great. You're a genius." So we call that a compliment sandwich.
At least it wasn't in red pen.
No, the red pen, this comes, and then you also get the manuscript back in Microsoft Word with all those comments down the side. And it becomes a fun process. At first you go, no, it was perfect. But then you go, Shane and I have done, we've probably done over a dozen books together now. So we kind of understand each other. And she's only trying to make it better. It's like teachers are trying to make your homework better. A coach who's trying to make you a better athlete. A conductor who's trying to make you a better singer. It's always good to have somebody outside of what you're doing who can look at what you're doing and give you good constructive criticism.
Oh, so, okay, our time is about up. Do you have any parting words for the kids in the audience?
Well, thank you guys so much for reading The Smartest Kid in the Universe, because it is, I think, the series I'm the most excited about since we started Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Life.
Oh, it's good, guys. You should buy it. If you haven't read it, you should read it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for doing this. We have copies of Chris's books in stock. You can buy on our website, or you can come into our store. We're temporarily located next to Sprouts now because we had a flood, but we're working on fixing that up. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, guys, and thanks for everybody who was watching. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, enjoyed Shine. All-time favorite.
Yay.
And thank you. You're awesome. You're awesome, too.
All
Okay.
right.
I'll close it up. Bye, guys.
Bye.